What if the anger you feel is not caused by other people, but by something quietly happening inside you? What if the words that disturb you, the behaviors that irritate you, the situations that steal your peace are not signs that the world is becoming worse, but invitations for you to become freer? In 2026, life is louder than ever. Opinions are stronger. People are more reactive. Boundaries are constantly tested. And yet, deep inside, you may feel tired of being emotionally pulled by every comment, every tone, every misunderstanding. This is not because you are weak. It is because you are human. Buddhist wisdom teaches that peace is not found by controlling others. It is found by understanding yourself. This video is not about suppressing anger or pretending you are unaffected. It is about gently dissolving the inner causes of irritation so that fewer things disturb you. And when they do, they no longer stay. These are 10 Buddhist lessons to help you stop getting angry or bothered by anyone, not by changing the world, but by changing your relationship with it. Listen slowly. Let each word meet you where you are. Let us begin. Lesson 1. Understand that anger is a messenger, not an enemy. Anger often arrives uninvited. It rises in the chest, tightens the jaw, speeds the breath. And the first instinct is usually resistance. I shouldn't feel this way. But Buddhism teaches something softer and far more powerful. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is a message. Every time you feel irritated or bothered by someone, something inside you is being touched. A value, a fear, an expectation, a wound. Anger does not appear out of nowhere. It arises from contact between the world and the mind. Most people try to eliminate anger by changing others. Buddhism invites you to understand anger by turning inward. Ask yourself gently, what expectation was just violated? What story am I telling myself right now? What am I afraid of losing, being disrespected for, or not being seen as? Anger thrives when it is ignored or judged, but when it is observed, it begins to soften. The Buddha taught that emotions are impermanent. They arise, they stay briefly, and they pass if we do not feed them. The problem is not anger itself. The problem is identification. The moment you say, I am angry, instead of anger is present, the emotion takes control. Try this practice. When anger appears, do not react immediately. Pause. Silently say, this is anger. Not my anger, not I am angry, just this is anger. This small shift creates space, and in that space you regain choice. You may notice that beneath anger there is often something more vulnerable: sadness, fear, disappointment, exhaustion. Anger is frequently the body's way of protecting something tender. When you meet it with curiosity instead of judgment, it no longer needs to shout. In 2026, when reactions are fast and emotions are amplified, your ability to pause becomes a form of wisdom. You do not need to suppress anger. You do not need to express it impulsively. You simply need to listen. Anger is saying, something matters here. Your task is to understand what that is, without letting anger decide your behavior. Peace does not mean never feeling anger. peace means anger no longer controls your actions, words, or self-respect. And this begins with understanding. Lesson 2. Release the belief that people should be different. Much of our anger comes from a single, quiet belief. People should behave differently than they do. This belief is rarely spoken out loud, but it lives beneath irritation, disappointment, and resentment. We expect others to be more considerate, more aware, more aligned with our values, and when they are not, we suffer. Buddhism teaches that suffering is born from resistance to reality. People are as they are because of their conditioning, experiences, fears, and level of awareness. This does not mean harmful behavior should be tolerated, but it does mean that expecting people to be different than they are, without evidence, creates unnecessary pain. Ask yourself, am I angry because someone did something wrong? Or am I angry because reality did not match my expectation? When you expect wisdom from someone who has not cultivated it, you suffer. When you expect emotional maturity from someone who has not learned it, you suffer. When you expect kindness from someone who is deeply struggling, you suffer. Acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is clarity. It is seeing clearly what is, instead of arguing with it internally. In Buddhist practice, there is an understanding that each person is walking their own path, often carrying invisible burdens. When you truly absorb this, something changes. You stop taking behavior so personally. You stop interpreting everything as an attack or a judgment. Try this reflection. This person is acting from their level of awareness, not from my needs. This does not make you passive, it makes you grounded. When you release the belief that others must behave according to your inner rules, you regain emotional freedom. You stop being surprised by human behavior. You stop being constantly offended. You stop giving strangers and situations power over your nervous system. In 2026, when interactions are frequent and boundaries are tested daily, online and offline, this lesson becomes essential. You are not responsible for educating everyone. You are not responsible for correcting everyone. You are responsible for your peace. Let people reveal who they are. Let that information guide your boundaries, not your anger. Anger says they should change. Wisdom says, now I see clearly. And clarity is always calmer than resistance. Lesson 3. Stop taking things personally. Most reactions are not about you. One of the deepest causes of anger is personalization. A look, a tone, a delayed response, a disagreement. The mind quietly asks, what does this say about me? Buddhist wisdom offers a liberating truth. Very little of what people do is actually about you. People speak from their moods. They act from their conditioning. They react from their wounds, fears, and habits. When someone is rude, dismissive, impatient, or emotionally distant, the mind often turns inward and creates a story. I'm not respected. I'm being rejected. I'm not enough. But most of the time, the other person is responding to something entirely unrelated: stress, insecurity, exhaustion, old pain, or an internal struggle you cannot see. The Buddha taught that the self we protect so fiercely is often an illusion, a mental construction shaped by memory and fear. When we take things personally, we reinforce this illusion and suffer unnecessarily. Ask yourself, what if this moment is not a reflection of my worth? What if this reaction says more about their inner state than my value? This shift does not dismiss your feelings. It contextualizes them. You can still feel hurt. You can still set boundaries, but you no longer carry the extra weight of self-blame. Here is a simple Buddhist practice. When you feel personally affected, pause and say, "This is their experience moving through them." You are witnessing, not absorbing. This does not mean becoming emotionally numb. It means becoming emotionally spacious. In 2026, when communication is fast, impersonal, and often filtered through screens, misunderstandings are inevitable. Tone is lost, intent is unclear, and the mind fills the gaps with assumptions, usually negative ones. You do not need to defend yourself from every perception. You do not need to explain yourself to every misunderstanding. You do not need to internalize every opinion. Your peace grows when you stop handing strangers the power to define how you feel about yourself. The less personal things become, the lighter life feels. The lighter life feels, the less anger has space to grow. You are allowed to observe without absorbing. You are allowed to care without carrying. You are allowed to remain steady even when others are not. This is not indifference. This is emotional maturity. Lesson 4. Respond slowly. Speed is the fuel of anger. Anger thrives on speed. Fast thoughts, fast words, fast reactions. The moment something triggers you, the body wants immediate expression. Defend, correct, argue, withdraw, attack. But Buddhism teaches that wisdom moves slowly, deliberately, and with awareness. The Buddha emphasized right speech and right action, not as moral rules, but as tools to reduce suffering. When we respond without pausing, we often speak from impulse rather than clarity. Ask yourself, have I ever reacted quickly and felt peaceful afterward? Usually, regret follows speed. Peace follows pause. This is why mindfulness is so central in Buddhist practice. Mindfulness creates a gap between stimulus and response, and inside that gap is freedom. Try this practice. When something bothers you, delay your response by 1 breath, then 2, then 3. Let the body settle before the mind decides. You will notice that many reactions lose their urgency when given time. What felt unbearable seconds ago often softens when not immediately fed with thought. In 2026, life encourages instant replies, messages, comments, decisions, opinions. But your nervous system is not designed for constant immediacy. Slowness becomes an act of self-respect. You do not owe anyone an immediate emotional reaction. You do not owe anger your voice. You do not owe irritation your energy. Responding slowly does not mean avoiding conflict. It means choosing the quality of your presence. Silence can be wiser than explanation. Stillness can be stronger than argument. A calm pause can dissolve tension faster than words. When you slow down, you hear yourself more clearly. When you hear yourself clearly, you act in alignment with your values. When you act in alignment, anger has no place to settle. Speed scatters the mind, slowness gathers it, and a gathered mind is difficult to disturb. Lesson 5. Release the need to be right. Peace is more valuable than victory. One of the most overlooked sources of anger is the need to be right. Right in opinions, right in memories, right in arguments, right in how things should be done. The mind quietly believes, if I am right, I am safe. If I am right, I am respected. And when someone challenges that belief, irritation appears almost instantly. Buddhist wisdom teaches that clinging to views is a subtle but powerful form of attachment. The Buddha spoke often about right view, yet he also warned against rigid views, beliefs held so tightly that they create suffering rather than understanding. Ask yourself gently, when I feel angry, am I trying to protect truth or my ego? Am I seeking understanding or validation? The desire to be right often masks a deeper fear, the fear of being dismissed, unseen, or powerless. But winning an argument rarely brings lasting peace. Even when you win, the body remains tense, the heart unsettled, the mind replaying the exchange. Peace does not come from proving. Peace comes from releasing. This does not mean abandoning your values or tolerating harm. It means recognizing that not every disagreement needs resolution, and not every misunderstanding needs correction. In Buddhism, silence is sometimes considered a higher form of wisdom than speech. Not because words are wrong, but because unnecessary words often come from restlessness rather than clarity. Try this practice. The next time you feel the urge to correct someone, pause and ask, will this bring peace or just temporary satisfaction? Often, the urge fades when seen clearly. In 2026, conversations are increasingly polarized. People hold opinions tightly, often confusing beliefs with identity. When you refuse to engage in every mental battle, you conserve energy, and energy is sacred. You do not need to convince others to validate your truth. You do not need agreement to feel grounded. You do not need recognition to be at peace. The Buddha taught that attachment to views is like grasping a hot coal to throw at someone else. You burn yourself first. Letting go of the need to be right is not losing power. It is reclaiming it. When you release this need, something profound happens. Your body relaxes. Your breath deepens. Your listening improves. Your presence softens. You begin to respond rather than react. You choose harmony over dominance. You value peace over applause. Ask yourself, is this moment worth my inner calm? Is this argument worth my nervous system? Is being right worth being disturbed? Often the answer is no. Peace is not passive. Peace is discerning. And the most peaceful people are not those who are always right, but those who know when being right no longer matters. Lesson 6. Understand that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see. Anger shrinks when understanding expands. One of the most transformative teachings in Buddhism is the recognition of shared suffering. Every person you encounter is carrying something: fear, grief, insecurity, confusion, longing. Even those who appear confident or difficult are often acting from inner struggle. The Buddha taught that ignorance and suffering shape behavior. People do not act unskillfully because they want to cause pain. They act from conditions they do not fully understand. Ask yourself, what might this person be carrying right now? What fear might be speaking through their words? What pain might be shaping their behavior? This perspective does not excuse harmful actions, but it changes how you relate to them internally. Compassion does not mean saying yes to everything. It means seeing clearly without hatred. When you recognize suffering in others, anger loses its sharpness. You stop seeing people as enemies and begin seeing them as human. In Buddhist practice, there is a simple yet profound reflection. Just like me, this person wants to be happy. Just like me, this person fears suffering. Repeat this silently when someone irritates you. You may notice a subtle shift in the heart. In 2026, life places people under constant pressure: financial uncertainty, emotional overload, digital noise, social comparison. Many people are exhausted, overstimulated, and disconnected from themselves. Their reactivity is not personal, it is symptomatic. When you meet reactivity with reactivity, suffering multiplies. When you meet reactivity with understanding, suffering dissolves. This does not require emotional labor or self-sacrifice. It requires perspective. You can set boundaries without anger. You can say no without resentment. You can protect your peace without hardening your heart. Compassion is not weakness. Compassion is strength without hostility. The Buddha emphasized that hatred cannot end hatred. Only understanding can. When you respond from compassion, you are not condoning behavior. You are refusing to let it poison your inner state. Try this practice. When you feel anger rising towards someone, soften your gaze, literally or mentally, and remind yourself, this is a human being experiencing conditions. Notice how the body responds. Anger tightens. Understanding loosens. Over time, this practice reshapes your nervous system. You become less reactive, less defensive, less burdened by other people's emotions. You stop carrying pain that was never yours to begin with. This is how peace grows, not by isolating yourself from humanity, but by seeing humanity clearly. And when you see clearly, anger has nowhere to land. Lesson 7. Guard your attention. What you feed the mind grows. Anger does not appear suddenly. It grows. It grows through repeated thoughts, constant exposure, and unconscious attention. Buddhism teaches that the mind becomes shaped by what it repeatedly consumes. Just as the body is influenced by food, the mind is influenced by attention. Ask yourself, what am I feeding my mind each day? What conversations, content, and thoughts am I allowing inside? In 2026, attention is constantly pulled. News, social media, opinions, conflict, comparison. Many people feel angry not because life is unbearable, but because their minds are overstimulated by negativity. The nervous system was never designed to absorb endless conflict. The Buddha taught that sense restraint is not denial, it is wisdom. Protecting your attention is an act of compassion toward yourself. When you repeatedly focus on things that irritate you, anger becomes familiar. Familiarity turns into habit, and habit shapes personality. Over time, the mind begins to seek irritation because it has been trained to. Try this practice. Notice what you reach for when you feel bored or restless. Does it bring calm or agitation? You do not need to know everything. You do not need to react to everything. You do not need to carry the weight of the world's problems in your mind. Choose what deserves your awareness. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means selecting wisely. When you reduce exposure to things that inflame you, something subtle happens. The body relaxes, thoughts slow, emotional reactivity decreases. You become less bothered, not because you are detached, but because your inner space is no longer crowded. The Buddha compared the mind to a garden. Whatever you water grows. If you water resentment, resentment flourishes. If you water calm, calm deepens. Ask yourself, is this thought worth my energy? Is this information helping me live wisely? Is this reaction nourishing or draining? Attention is life force. Where you place it determines the quality of your inner world. Guard it gently, and anger will slowly lose its fuel. Lesson 8. Practice non-attachment to emotions. Feel without holding on. Many people believe peace means never feeling anger. Buddhism offers a different understanding. Peace means allowing emotions to arise without clinging to them. Emotions are like weather passing through the sky of awareness. Anger is a storm, not permanent, not personal, not something you need to chase or suppress. The suffering comes not from feeling anger, but from holding onto it. The Buddha taught that attachment turns temporary experiences into prolonged pain. When you replay words, revisit situations, and rehearse arguments in your mind, anger stays alive long after the moment has passed. Ask yourself, am I experiencing this emotion, or am I reliving it? Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means not gripping what is already leaving. Try this simple Buddhist practice. When anger arises, notice where it lives in the body, perhaps in the chest, the throat, the stomach. Observe it without trying to change it. Silently say, "This is a sensation. This is temporary." You will notice something surprising. When you stop resisting or feeding the emotion, it begins to dissolve on its own. In 2026, emotional intensity is often mistaken for truth. But not every feeling requires action. Not every emotion deserves your voice. Wisdom lies in discernment. You are allowed to feel without reacting. You are allowed to pause without explaining. You are allowed to let emotions pass without turning them into stories. The Buddha reminded his students, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are the awareness observing them. When you remember this, anger loses its authority. Feel fully, release gently, remain steady. Peace is not emotional numbness. Peace is emotional freedom. Lesson 9. Let go of the story. Reality is happening without commentary. Anger often does not come from what happens. It comes from the story you tell yourself about what happens. A word is spoken, a message is delayed, a look is misinterpreted, and the mind begins narrating. They disrespected me. They don't care. They always do this. This shouldn't have happened. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we confuse reality with interpretation. Reality is simple. It happens. The story adds judgment, meaning, blame, and memory, and it is the story that keeps anger alive. Ask yourself gently, what actually happened, and what did my mind add? Most irritation is not caused by events. It is caused by the mental commentary that follows them. The Buddha taught that the mind is a powerful storyteller, constantly shaping experience through past conditioning and fear. When left unobserved, these stories feel true, even when they are incomplete or inaccurate. Here is a grounding practice. When something bothers you, describe it in neutral language without interpretation. Instead of, "They ignored me," say, "They did not respond." Notice the difference in emotional intensity. When you strip away the story, the body relaxes. When the body relaxes, anger weakens. In 2026, the mind is constantly fed with narratives, opinions, assumptions, labels. This trains us to react to interpretations instead of responding to reality. Letting go of the story is a form of mental freedom. This does not mean denying your feelings. It means recognizing that feelings are influenced by thought. You can feel disappointment without creating resentment. You can notice hurt without building identity around it. You can acknowledge confusion without assuming intention. The Buddha taught that clarity begins when we see things as they are, not as we imagine them to be. When you practice this, life feels lighter. Situations resolve faster. Emotional loops break. Ask yourself, is this fact or interpretation? Is this happening now, or am I reliving it? The moment you drop the story, you return to the present, and in the present, anger has less space to grow. Peace is not found by rewriting reality. Peace is found by seeing it clearly, without excess commentary. Lesson 10. Choose inner freedom. No one deserves control over your peace. The final lesson is not about others, it is about you. Every time you get angry, ask yourself, who is in control of my inner world right now? Buddhism teaches that true freedom is internal. As long as your peace depends on how others behave, your peace is fragile. You become emotionally reactive, easily disturbed, constantly adjusting to external conditions. But when peace becomes an inner choice, something shifts. You realize no one can steal your calm without your participation. No one can disturb your mind unless you allow it. No one deserves the power to control your emotional state. This does not mean suppressing feelings. It means choosing not to be ruled by them. The Buddha taught that liberation begins when we stop giving external events authority over our inner experience. This is not detachment from life. It is deep engagement without entanglement. Try this reflection. Is this worth my peace? Is this moment worth carrying all day? Is this person worth my inner freedom? Often the answer is no. In 2026, life will continue to be unpredictable. People will still disappoint. Situations will still arise. But you no longer need to meet every disturbance with inner conflict. You can observe without absorbing. You can respond without reacting. You can remain steady while the world moves around you. Inner freedom is not something you earn. It is something you remember. Each time you choose calm over reactivity, you strengthen this freedom. Each time you let go instead of holding on, you reclaim energy. Each time you breathe instead of arguing internally, you return home to yourself. Anger loses power when you stop negotiating with it. Peace grows when you stop postponing it. You do not need a perfect world to be at peace. You need a steady mind, and that steadiness is always available. Right now, in this breath, in this moment. If these lessons brought clarity or calm into your day, allow them to stay with you. Peace is not found by changing others. It grows when you change how you relate to the world. If you'd like more Buddhist wisdom, mindfulness practices, and gentle guidance for everyday life, consider subscribing to our channel, Mindfulness. Your presence supports the sharing of calm and understanding with others who need it. Thank you for listening. May you be peaceful, may you be present, and may your inner freedom continue to grow.